Okay, welcome back. 144,000 Project, AngloIsrael.com, Rev 9 video. We're on the end of Acts. We just finished Amos 9:11. 12 tribes brought from captivity in the end time after judgment by Christ. Yes? Just read the whole of Amos. You can put it together. It starts right out with judgment on various people. In other words, the other groups, by the way, were those groups that we saw over in Psalms. I forgot to mention that. Remember, look at my Psalms chart. You've got 4 different verses in Psalms who list this group of people who are in this military coalition. So think mercenaries, in other words, but they're being hired out by these Jews against Christ, and then they're attacking the kindred. So they're attacking the Jews against Christ, hiring mercenaries to, in other words, to keep them in so that they maintain their status as the 1%. That's the whole concept. So they're hiring people, they trust in their money, so they go out and they hire people to murder people who are causing problems for them, which turn out to be Jews for Christ are the ones that are causing the problems. Obviously, because, you know, that's what a proper justice system is all about. If you do a proper justice system, you don't look at people's rank and status and money. In other words, that's why they wanted to, you know, have people who could not be bribed. And the fact of the matter is, you can't follow God's law. It's impossible to follow God's law without a justice system based on His law. Because if you don't have that, you can't hold people accountable. So then the people who want to follow God's law are crushed by the ones who don't. You see? That's what He said. But look, then He said, you can't do it on your own, so I'll be with you. I'll be with you. I'll shield you from harm. I'll fight for you when necessary. Just remember that Gideon didn't fight anybody. He just showed up. It was Christ the Rock that did all the fighting, right? Gideon didn't kill anybody. All right? It's a good example of Christ the Rock. What did He do? He confused them. What does He do in Revelation? Okay, He gets them to fight each other, and they kill each other off, and they don't even know why. Well, why did you kill the other people we hired to help you? Well, I don't know. You know, they shot at me, so I shot back, or whatever, you see. Or He just comes with a tornado of fire and does it, you know, or it shoots a lightning bolt at you and blows something up, and, oh, that's just... you know, Mother Nature. Our army was destroyed by Mother Nature. No, that wasn't it. But that's all they can comprehend, see? So, let's see if we can comprehend something else. Okay, now we got a big jump between 15:18 and Amos, where there's no quotes. But, you know, if you continue from 15, you should be scanning through this, and you should notice some things. Okay. Well, if you get down to 16, 20, 21, these men, being Jews, greatly disturb our town and proclaim a religion which it's illegal for us to accept, being Romans, to accept or to practice. Okay. But these people, speaking about Paul and his other disciples, Paul and Silas, it says here in 19, they're Jews, but they didn't call themselves Jews necessarily. Once they became Christians, they dropped that moniker, so it really just means that they're Israelites in reality, because the Jews were the ones running the synagogue, right? They preached against Jews, so yeah, they're Jews in the essence that they're 12 tribes. That's why I said you can use whatever term you want. You can say Jews, you can say Israelites, you can say 12 tribes. It all means the same thing, because all the prophecies keep going back to these people who came out of Exodus and the promise to their forefathers, and it goes back to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob over and over and over again, 1,000 times. It goes back to Abraham and the faith of Abraham. And we know the faith of Abraham was resurrection by Christ. They just didn't understand why Christ came and left until those last 40 days, which it points out at the beginning of Acts. That's when they understood. After Christ was resurrected. Then He went back and taught them all this stuff. Before that, they didn't understand it. You kept noticing they give these parables. They didn't understand the parables. They didn't understand. No, it was the last 40 days when they had this. You know, he gave them all these videos that showed them what all this stuff meant, so they could learn it and pass it to their. You know, that would have been nice. Why didn't he? He could have given them something that could have been. I mean, we got videos. Why couldn't Christ just give them something? He's the creator of all heavens and earth. He could hand them some kind of little Star Trek kind of device that had a video screen on it with his face on it, and they could pass that along and duplicate them like DVDs and hand them out to the brethren who could look and ask it questions and anything they wanted to know. Well, sure, he could do that. Why didn't he? I don't know. It doesn't operate the way we think. Being a creator, if you start thinking about it, it just doesn't make much sense that there's a creator that doesn't really talk to you. Yeah, or appears not to, at any rate. So read on through. And here's the important points that I wanted to point out, because since we're not going to get anything until chapter 23. In 17, you notice, 17:3, Paul again, he's in a synagogue. So he went in, as his custom, for 3 Sabbaths, discussing with them from the Scriptures, illustrating and proving that the Messiah must suffer and rise again from the dead, and that this Jesus whom I proclaim to you is the Messiah. Now, how do we know? Of course, in other verses it says by Moses and the prophets, and then in one verse, I pointed out, Luke 24:44, it's Moses, the prophets, and Psalms, but in many other verses he's quoting prophecies. As the prophet said, as it says in Scripture, blah, 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 but it's a prophecy. And then we look, and it's prophecies starting way back in Genesis chapter 2. So, it's prophecies from Moses, the prophets, and then most people actually know more about the New Testament from Psalms than anywhere, so we know it's prophecies of Moses, the prophets, and Psalms. So here he says, right here, he proved about the first coming of Christ. And he's only talking about the first coming right there. Okay? But he proved that point, which are some of the prophecies we've already looked at. Alright, and some of them were pretty smart. You go down to 17:10, it tells you where he's at, in the synagogue. They accepted the message with hearty goodwill, examining the Scriptures daily so as to verify his statements. So they were like, well, he says it's in our Scriptures that this Messiah was supposed to come and die and be resurrected. I don't remember my pastor teaching that. He's never taught that. The other churches have never taught that. Yeah. But the people said, wow, the Messiah, we've been waiting on him, and you say he's already come. So they went to the Scriptures and looked up to see if what he was teaching was correct. They didn't say, well, this guy's running some kind of cult. Or what did they just say? What is this, a cult? Isn't that what it just said? These men, being Jews, disturb our town, proclaim a religion which is illegal for us. Right? It's a cult. In fact, our law, we got laws against that. Hate speech. Wow. So all this was going on back then. Yeah. Alright. So he told them. Oh, and what do they call it? 17:18. He seems to be an introducer of foreign divinities because he told them about the good news of Christ and the resurrection. That's a foreign divinity. Wow. Of course, you can look at where he's at. Oh, and here he's in Athens in 22 to an unknown God. Everybody knows about that. So he's teaching about this unknown God. Well, he's in most of our churches today because they don't know anything about Christ from Genesis. I've never spoke to a pastor who could teach about Christ from Genesis. Where are they? I don't know. Never met one. Everyone I asked about Christ in Genesis, they're like, if they even know 49:10, that's remarkable. Genesis 49, if they even realize that that's the most used cross-reference in the New Testament, that's remarkable. They just got that. So here you go, 26. He made by one race of men to dwell upon the whole face of the earth, having provided proper methods and guides for the research in seeking God. Well, he's talking about the 12 tribes. Okay. In other words, he provided the guides for the research into seeking God to the 12 tribes. And he said, this is my royal priesthood. This is what he made them for in Exodus 19:6. Oh, and where are we going? Exodus 22. Yeah. You see? If only they would feel for and find him. And yet he's certainly not far from every one of us. 27. From him we live, we move, exist. As some of your own poets have said, that we originate from him, children of God. So he's speaking to people who are undoubtedly part of the 12 tribes. They don't perceive. Well, that's why he sent them there. That's why he said, go out and seek the house of Israel. Yeah. So he's seeking his brethren, his brotherhood, kindred. Therefore, possessing an origin from God. Well, the Jews against Christ don't have an origin from God, not from God's, from Christ's own words. He said they were from Satan, the devil. He didn't say they had an origin from him. The origin from him are the ones for Christ. The origin from Satan are the ones that stumbled over the message of Christ. That's pretty bad when, Christ himself says, your father's the devil, she said in John and other places. All right. However, so basically he's saying once you turn, you might have come from Abraham and you might be one of the 12 tribes in essence, but, when you can't even figure out the simplest things after you see all the things I did for you coming out of Egypt and then see how you got water and food out in the middle of the desert and I brought you through, I conquered these people for you, I did all these things for you, gave you houses that you didn't build and all that, which was all in prophecy, and he fulfilled all these prophecies, and then you don't perceive me, you go and you worship Satan. Alright, well those people apparently are from Satan in the spiritual sense, even if they're 12 tribes. Because he says in 29, therefore possessing an origin from God, we ought not to imagine the divine nature to be like gold or silver or stone. God, overlooking these periods of ignorance, now calls to all men everywhere to change your mind. Yes, all men everywhere. He's talking to his brother. He's not searching out. He's not going down into the darkest regions of Africa or going over to China or up to Russia and all these places. He's trying to find his kindred. When he says all men everywhere, he's talking about the ones who's promised the resurrection. He's trying to teach them about Christ. Exactly. Isn't that what it said before? The good news of Jesus and the resurrection. Verse 18, right above. That's what he's trying to teach him. And who's he going to? Well, he's going to the people Christ told him to go to. You think Christ told Paul to do something different than what he told the apostles? No, he is an apostle. He's teaching the other apostles. So he set an example, do what Christ said. Go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Right? That's what all the prophecies say. The 12 tribes will be brought back together. Why? Very difficult to teach your brethren the message of Christ in context because they don't want to hear it. Who are you? He's pointed at a day in which he will judge the world with justice by a man, speaking of Christ, whom he has provided. Think Deuteronomy 18:15. So he's going back to the prophecy of Christ from Moses. Having given the strongest evidence by raising him from among the dead. Okay, but as he already said, that was prophecy. So he was teaching them, proving from them these prophecies that applied to this Christ who's already died, been resurrected, and your brothers were provoked to, band together with the leadership of the synagogue to kill them. That's the context. However, when he gets to the mention of the resurrection of the dead, provokes sneering on the part of some. Verse 32. Yeah, because they don't believe they'll be resurrected. Well, they won't be because they sneer at Christ. Christ doesn't want people that don't comprehend Christ. He went to them. They don't believe. He goes somewhere else. He spoke to them in parables, for God's sakes. So that why? He said, lest they turn and I have to heal them. Because they're so dense. They don't want me. I don't want them. Let me have some more. Thus Paul went out. Some people, however, believed and followed. Well, there you go. Okay. So, like I said over here, they searched the scriptures daily. So I went and looked up. Actually looked up. What's he talking about? And go looked it up. And said, oh, okay. Well, it does say these things. So maybe Paul's right. A judge of the high court, a woman named Damaris and others with him. So he got a few of the high ranking, which is one of the reasons he got Paul, because people knew Paul. Or about him. Because remember, this is many years later, 17 years after he went to Arabia, just relearn everything he knew before so he could come back and then teach this. Yeah, that's probably how long I've been learning. More than that, 20. Now that I think about it, been more than 20. Paul left Athens, came to Corinth, found a Jew, in other words, found one of his kindred. They came from Italy with his wife, because Claudius expelled the Jews. In other words, expelled members of the 12 tribes. Jews for Christ, Jews against Christ, whatever. As he was of the same profession, okay, so he was a teacher, he stayed with them, employed himself, for by profession they were landscape painters, okay, so there you go, painters. But he debated every Sabbath in the synagogue, persuading Jews and Greeks. Why Greeks? Because Greeks is talking about, as it mentioned before, some of the people standing. Remember when he said, oh, these people are not drunk, and he said, oh, because he had these Jews from all over these different places all over. Yeah, they were spread out. Some of them were Greeks. Alright, Silas and Timothy, verse 5. So we're at 18:5. Paul was engaged in discussion, demonstrating to the Jews that Jesus was the Messiah. It wasn't demonstrating to the Jews for Christ. You see, he was trying to get his brethren who still didn't know about Christ, or maybe even were against Christ, about the Messiah, and you know that this person that they killed was resurrected. Then they set themselves in opposition and abused him. So he said, well, hey, he shook off his robe and said, your blood be upon your own heads. I'm guiltless, for now I'll go to the heathen. Well, Gentiles. So he wasn't going to the Gentiles yet. He was going to his own kindred. These Jews it keeps mentioning. See? So, you know, he knew about going to the house of Israel, which he did, but he wasn't really doing it just yet. He was going to the house of Judah, which is why it keeps saying Jews, you see. Because the house of Israel weren't called Jews, they were divorced from Israel. So, you see, when they then became believers, realizing that this was to bring them back to Christ, and that they were going to be brought back into this faith of Abraham through Christ, which is what he's trying to teach them, they didn't call themselves Jews. Because, you know, they wanted to separate themselves from the Jews. The Jews are the ones, it just says, who were settled against Paul. Who were against Paul. Yes, he did get some of them. It mentions he got some of them. Got a lot of them in Jerusalem. It mentions thousands back there. So, yes. But those were the lowborn, not the ones out of the synagogue. It didn't show you any of these guys going to the synagogue, Stephen or any of them, convincing their brothers who were sitting in judgment, judges and so forth, over them. Well, Paul did, actually. Judge of the high court, at the end of 17, plus a woman. Okay. But Paul knew a lot more about Scripture, and he was taught by Christ very directly. I think Plus, he was already at the level of a high priest, so he already actually knew all the scriptures. It was the reteaching, in other words. Yeah, he was brainwashed by the leadership of the Jews and the Jews against Christ, so he's brainwashed into Talmudism or Phariseeism or whatever you want to call it. It was the Talmud. It's what we call the Talmud. It's what they were following, commandments of men, right? Tradition of the elders was the Talmud. It wasn't God's law. They keep saying, oh, they follow God. No, they don't follow God's law. They follow their law.